The council chamber hummed with the low murmur of anxious voices. A massive crystalline table dominated the center of the room, its surface gleaming under the light of the twin moons visible through the high windows. Gathered around it were representatives from three of the most prominent trading species in the galaxy, the Arkanites, the Vorquith, and the Tal'Ku. These species had seen it all: worlds of endless seas, planets with gravitational anomalies, and civilizations that thrived in environments beyond comprehension. But even they knew better than to casually approach Earth. A Vorquith named Threkz, who towered over the other traders, folded his arms across his broad chest. His scaled brow furrowed as he gazed at the shimmering image of Earth hovering in the center of the table. "It has to be done," a Tal'Ku named Jintin murmured, his voice like a whispering breeze. His delicate frame and translucent skin gave him a ghostly appearance, but his words carried an undeniable weight. "The last shipment was late. If we don't retrieve the resources, we'll lose control of the galactite markets. We can't afford to fall behind." "But Earth," Threkz growled, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "The last crew didn't return. The one before that barely made it out with half their crew alive. Do we really want to risk this?" A deep, reverberating voice interrupted the debate. "We have no choice." It was Korin, the Arkanite representative, his rigid metallic face betraying no emotion. His species thrived on logic and efficiency, their bodies more machine than flesh. "We need the terathium deposits from Earth's surface, and there's no other place in the galaxy where we can mine it. Unless any of you have a better suggestion." The room fell silent. No one had a better suggestion. Terathium was vital for the energy converters that powered their trade fleets, and without it, entire sectors of the galaxy could fall into chaos. But Earth, a death world, the galaxy's ultimate challenge. Jintin shifted uncomfortably. "So, it's decided. We'll draw straws." Korin nodded curtly. "It is the only fair way. The mission requires 4 representatives. The straws will choose." Threkz let out a low rumble, more growl than sigh, and approached the table. With a resigned glance, the other 2 followed suit. The air in the room felt thicker now, weighed down by the gravity of what was about to happen. A silver cup was placed in the center of the table, filled with thin rod straws, marked at their ends. 4 short ones among the rest. Whoever drew the short straws would be chosen to face Earth. Jintin hesitated for a moment before reaching for the cup. His fingers, thin and nearly translucent, pulled one out slowly. He glanced down at the straw's tip and exhaled a breath. He hadn't realized he was holding it was long. He wouldn't be going. Korin followed, his cold, mechanical fingers pulling another straw from the cup. He stared at the end, his metallic eyes narrowing just slightly. He too had pulled a long one. Threx's scaly hand dwarfed the cup as he drew next. His large, reptilian eyes took in the short straw in his grasp. He grunted, tossing the straw onto the table. "I knew it," he muttered, his deep voice filled with irritation. The remaining traders began to draw, one by one. The tension in the room built with every breath. By the time the last straw was drawn, 3 others had joined Threkz in his fate: an Arkanite named Threkz, another Vorquith trader named Zarek, and a Tal'Ku scientist named Malkuth. The council chamber remained eerily quiet as the chosen 4 stepped forward. Korin, as the leader of the Arkanites, addressed them in his usual calm, precise tone. "You will leave immediately. The faster you retrieve the terathium, the sooner we can secure our interest in the sector." Malkuth, who had remained quiet throughout the ceremony, cleared his throat. His pale blue eyes flickered nervously. "We've all heard the stories. Earth is unpredictable. Even with the best data, there are too many variables." Korin's voice remained steady. "You have the best technology the galaxy can offer, and humanity, despite their ferocity, has shown a willingness to trade. They value terathium as they use it for their own purposes. You will not be without leverage." Threkz grumbled. "Trade? The last crew barely survived long enough to hand over the goods. You make it sound as though humans are reasonable. They're nothing but wild beasts." Jintin, who had already avoided his own brush with fate, interjected softly. Wild beasts that built starships and warp engines. They may be dangerous, but they are far from mindless. The four chosen traders exchanged uneasy glances. There was no going back now. The straws had spoken. The journey to Earth was quiet, the silence in the ship almost suffocating as they neared their destination. The sleek vessel cut through space, its hull designed to withstand the gravitational anomalies Earth was famous for. The crew, however, was less prepared. Each alien harbored their own fears, their own preconceived notions about the death world and the creatures that inhabited it. As they entered the solar system, the ship's sensors flared with warning signals. Vorquith, ever the scientist, hurried to his station, his slender fingers dancing over the controls. Atmospheric interference, much stronger than predicted. Threkz, the Arkanite pilot, barely glanced up. His metallic frame was built for precision, and he remained calm as the ship jolted under the strain. "We'll compensate." Threkz was pacing, his heavy footsteps echoing through the ship's corridors. "This planet is a nightmare." Zarek, his fellow Vorquith, sat sharpening a blade-like tool, his lips twisted in a grim smile. "A nightmare we must survive." The planet loomed before them now, its blue and green surface deceptively calm from orbit. But the tales of humans and their world played in the back of each trader's mind. The wild beasts, the extreme climates, the resilient creatures who called this death world home. Earth was known for its unpredictable storms, its ravenous wildlife, and its cunning inhabitants. Many who came to Earth never left. Threkz clenched his fists. "Let's get this over with." The ship descended, engines roaring as they pierced the atmosphere. Sensors flickered, alarms blared, and the vessel shuddered violently as Earth's gravity took hold. And then, with a final lurch, they touched down on the planet's surface. As the door to the ship hissed open, a wall of warm, humid air hit them. The landscape before them was dense with towering trees and overgrown foliage. Earth's untamed wilderness stretched as far as the eye could see. Threkz took the first step onto the soil, his metal boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. Welcome to the death world. The real challenge had just begun. The moment they stepped out of the ship, the air felt oppressive, thick with moisture and the unfamiliar sense of Earth's ecosystem. Each alien breathed in cautiously, their senses alert to every sound, smell, and movement. The trees above loomed like silent sentinels, their massive trunks disappearing into the canopy, where even the harsh light of Earth's sun struggled to penetrate. Vorquith, the Tal'Ku scientist, moved forward slowly, his delicate hands waving a device over the soil. His translucent skin shimmered under the dim light filtering through the branches. "The air is denser than we expected, but it's within tolerable limits for all of us," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the hum of his equipment. "It's the wildlife we need to watch for." Threkz grunted, unsheathing a long, serrated blade from his belt. His Vorquith physiology allowed him to endure harsh conditions, but Earth had a reputation of making even the toughest creatures feel fragile. "I'll watch their throats." Threkz, ever the efficient Arkanite, was already mapping their surroundings with the precision of a machine. "We'll need to move quickly. The terathium deposits are scattered, but there's a cluster just beyond the mountain range." His metallic face remained expressionless, but his voice carried the weight of urgency. "We cannot afford to linger." The sound of rustling leaves caught their attention. Threkz froze, his predatory gaze scanning the forest. "We're being watched." Zarek chuckled, his fellow Vorquith less tense than Threkz, but no less cautious. "Of course we are. This entire planet watches you. It's a predator's world." Vorquith glanced nervously toward the tree line, his keen Tal'Ku eyesight detecting faint movement. "It's just local wildlife, probably nothing too dangerous yet." But on Earth, nothing dangerous was relative. Even the smallest creatures here had a reputation for deadly venom, immense strength, or cunning intelligence. Without a word, the group began their trek, moving through the dense jungle with as much care as their varying physiologies allowed. Threkz took point, his blade gleaming as he cut through the underbrush. Vorquith trailed behind, his hands trembling as he scanned the area, his devices beeping softly. Threkz, ever the stoic warrior, kept his eyes on the surrounding foliage, his own blade ready. Threkz walked steadily, calculating their route, always thinking several steps ahead. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shuddered. A low, rumbling sound echoed through the trees, followed by a sharp crack. The earth split, sending shockwaves through the ground as trees bent and snapped like twigs. "Move," Threkz commanded, his metallic voice cutting through the chaos. The group bolted, narrowly avoiding the collapsing ground as an enormous chasm opened where they had just stood. Thick vines and massive roots dangled into the dark abyss, which seemed to stretch on for miles beneath the forest floor. "What the hell was that?" Threkz roared, his blade still at the ready. Vorquith's device chirped wildly, the readings on his screen fluctuating. "Seismic activity, but not natural. Something's triggered it." "Triggered by what?" Threkz demanded, eyes narrowing as he scanned the perimeter. "We've been here less than an hour." Threx's voice was eerily calm. "Earth. It's unpredictable. The planet has its own way of testing us." The ground stopped shaking, but the eerie silence that followed was more unsettling than the quake. There was something deeply unnatural about this world, a hidden intelligence guiding its every danger. "Let's not waste time," Threkz said, his metallic limbs shifting as he recalibrated their path. "We need to reach the terathium deposits and complete our mission." As they moved deeper into the forest, the atmosphere around them seemed to grow more hostile. The air grew thicker, more oppressive, and the sounds of the jungle intensified calls of unseen animals, the rustling of leaves, and the occasional distant roar that sent chills down even Threx's spine. Hours passed, and the group found themselves at the edge of a vast clearing. The terathium deposits, glowing faintly beneath the surface, were visible in the distance, scattered across a rocky expanse that jutted out from the base of a massive mountain. "We're here," Threkz said, his voice betraying no relief. "Let's extract the resources and leave." The team moved toward the deposit, their equipment humming as they prepared to drill into the rocky surface. Vorquith's hands moved swiftly, his devices whirring as they analyzed the terathium veins. But something was wrong. The ground felt wrong. The air had an electric charge to it, and the animals in the distance had fallen eerily silent. Threkz, sharpening his blade, grunted. "Too quiet." Threkz sniffed the air, his reptilian senses picking up on something the others couldn't. "Something's coming." Suddenly, a deafening screech ripped through the clearing. From the dense forest, creatures began to emerge, large, insectoid beasts with armored bodies and serrated claws. They moved in perfect synchronization, their movements almost too calculated for mere animals. "Ambush!" Threkz shouted, drawing his blade. Threx's metallic body shifted as his arms unfolded into weapons, glowing with a dangerous blue energy. "Defend the deposit." The team scattered, taking defensive positions around the terathium deposit as the creatures advanced. Threkz slashed through the first of the creatures, his blade cutting through its armored hide with a sickening crunch. Threkz moved beside him, his own weapon flashing through the air as he cut down another of the beasts. But for every one they killed, two more emerged from the trees, their black eyes gleaming with a predatory intelligence. Vorquith, unaccustomed to combat, stayed back, frantically analyzing the creatures with his devices. "They're not from this planet," he shouted, his voice trembling. These aren't Earth's animals." Threkz fired a volley of energy blasts, taking down several of the creatures at once. "They've been sent. Someone or something doesn't want us here." As the battle raged, it became clear that these creatures weren't mindless predators. They were strategic, coordinated, and they weren't just trying to kill the traitors. They were protecting the terathium. A cold realization washed over the group. Threkz, bloodied and breathing heavily, spat out the words they had all been thinking. "It's the humans. They're behind this." Vorquith's eyes widened as the pieces fell into place. "They knew we were coming. They set this trap." Threks's mechanical limbs shifted as he prepared for another attack. Then we outsmart them. We finish the mission. But as the next wave of creatures advanced, it became clear that this mission was far more dangerous and far more calculated than any of them had anticipated. The onslaught of the insectoid creatures continued without mercy, their chittering and hissing filling the air as they closed in. The ground beneath the team was slick with the blood of the fallen creatures, but it was nowhere near enough to stem the tide. Threkz, his muscles taut and his teeth bared in fury, fought on. His reptilian reflexes allowed him to dodge and weave between the swarming creatures, his blade flashing as he hacked through one after another. But even he could see the writing on the wall. They were outnumbered, and these beasts weren't going to stop. "Damn them," Threkz roared, narrowly dodging a swipe from one of the creature's claws. "How many more are there?" Zarek, standing back to back with him, grunted. "Too many." His own blade was coated in the sticky ichor of the creatures, but his movements were slowing. Vorquith, crouched behind a large rock, his slender fingers tapping frantically at the controls of his handheld scanner, was shaking his head in disbelief. "I don't understand it," he muttered. "These creatures, they're artificial." Threkz, who had been systematically taking down the creatures with his energy weapon, spared a glance back at the Tal'Ku scientist. "Explain." Vorquith's voice wavered as he continued to scan the advancing beasts. "These things, they're not native to Earth. They're not even organic. I'm detecting synthetic materials in their bodies. Someone or something built these." Zarek's blade slashed through another creature with a wet thud, but he couldn't hide the alarm in his voice. "Built them for what? To kill us?" Threx's eyes narrowed. "No, to defend the terathium." The realization hit the group like a cold wind. Whoever had sent these creatures wasn't interested in killing them, at least, not primarily. They were trying to protect the valuable resource beneath their feet. The terathium was the key to this whole operation, and the traitors were stepping into a game they didn't fully understand. Threkz, blood dripping from a wound on his arm, spat on the ground. "So, what now? We keep fighting until they overrun us." Threkz, his voice cold and measured, responded without hesitation. "No, we finish the mission." The mechanical alien's words had a weight to them, a finality that silenced the rest of the team. Even in the chaos of the battle, Threkz remained unshaken. His mind was a machine incapable of fear, regret, or doubt, and he knew exactly what needed to be done. "Vorquith," Threkz said, firing off another energy blast. "Find the central node. There has to be a control center for these creatures. If they're synthetic, they're being controlled." Vorquith nodded, his trembling hands moving faster as he recalibrated his scanner. "I'll need time." "Then we'll buy you time," Threkz replied. Threkz grinned despite the carnage around them. "I like this plan." Zarek, his face a mask of concentration, nodded. "Let's do this." With renewed focus, the team fell into a defensive formation, their weapons raised as they fought off wave after wave of the creatures. Threx's energy blast cut through the insectoids with precision, while Threkz and Zarek's blades danced through the fray, slashing and cutting with brutal efficiency. But it was a losing battle. The creatures kept coming, and with each passing minute, the team grew more exhausted. Their weapons grew heavier, their movements slower, and yet they fought on, their determination fueled by the knowledge that their survival depended on Vorquith's success. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Vorquith's voice broke through the cacophony of the battle. "I've found it," he shouted, his eyes wide with excitement. "The control node, it's underground, beneath the terathium deposit." Threkz didn't hesitate. "Then we dig." The team converged on the terathium deposit, their weapons momentarily forgotten as they worked together to uncover the hidden node. The ground was tough, the rocky surface resisting their efforts, but they pressed on, their hands and claws tearing at the earth with frantic urgency. Beneath the surface, a metallic glint caught their eyes. The control node, a small, spherical device embedded in the rock, hummed softly, its surface glowing with a faint blue light. Vorquith's hands trembled as he reached for the device, his fingers brushing against its smooth surface. "This is it," he whispered, "the heart of the system." But as his fingers closed around the device, a low rumbling filled the air. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and a deafening roar echoed through the clearing. The group froze, their eyes widening in horror as they realized what was happening. The creatures weren't retreating. They were evolving. Before their eyes, the insectoids began to shift and change, their bodies growing larger and more armored. Their claws elongated, their eyes glowed with a sinister red light, and their movements became more coordinated, more precise. "They're adapting," Vorquith gasped, his voice trembling. "The node it's connected to them. It's evolving them in real time." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Then we destroy it." With a single, decisive movement, Threkz raised his energy weapon and fired at the control node. The blast hit the sphere with a loud crack, sending sparks flying in all directions. The device sputtered, its blue light flickering before going out completely. For a brief moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. And then, the creatures collapsed. One by one, the insectoids fell to the ground, their bodies twitching as the life drained out of them. The clearing fell silent, the only sound the ragged breathing of the exhausted traders. Threkz collapsed onto the ground, his chest heaving with exhaustion. "I thought we were finished," he muttered, wiping the sweat from his brow. Zarek, still standing, sheathed his blade. "We almost were." Vorquith, his hands still trembling, stared at the broken control node. Whoever built this, they weren't just protecting the terathium, they were experimenting, testing how far they could push these creatures. Threkz, ever the pragmatist, surveyed the fallen creatures with cold indifference. "It doesn't matter now. The terathium is ours. We've completed the mission." But even as he spoke, a sense of unease settled over the group. The control node was destroyed, and the creatures were dead, but the mystery of who or what had sent them remained unsolved. As they gathered their equipment and prepared to leave, Vorquith couldn't shake the feeling that they were still being watched. Somewhere out there, beyond the trees, someone was observing their every move. And they weren't done with Earth yet. The eerie silence that followed the collapse of the creatures was unnerving. The only sound that filled the air was the faint hum of the terathium deposit and the team's labored breathing. Threkz remained on the ground, catching his breath, while Vorquith's eyes stayed fixed on the broken control node. Zarek scanned the tree line, his instincts on high alert. "We need to move. Whatever sent those things might send something worse." Threkz nodded, his metallic frame gleaming in the fading sunlight. "Agreed. Let's secure the terathium and prepare for extraction." As the team gathered around the terathium deposit, Vorquith's curiosity got the better of him. "I need to collect some samples," he muttered, reaching into his pack for his tools. His hands were steady now, the scientist in him overtaking the fear that had gripped him moments before. Threkz stood, dusting himself off and glaring at Vorquith. "Samples? After all that, you're going to poke around some more?" Vorquith shot him a glance. "This isn't just any resource. Terathium is the most potent energy conductor in the galaxy. If someone or something was willing to send an entire swarm of artificial creatures to protect it, there's more to this than we know." Threkz watched Vorquith work, his expression unreadable. "We have what we came for. The job is done." "But don't you want to know why?" Vorquith's voice was tinged with urgency. "Why would someone go to these lengths? This planet is dangerous enough as it is. What could possibly make this deposit so valuable that it warrants such extreme measures?" Zarek, his face grim, shook his head. "Does it matter? We're just here to trade, not to solve mysteries." Threkz grunted in agreement, though the flicker of curiosity in his reptilian eyes betrayed him. "I'm with Zarek. We've got the terathium, we've finished the mission. Let's just leave before more of those things show up." But Vorquith wasn't listening anymore. His hands moved with precision, carefully collecting fragments of the broken control node and small shards of terathium. As he worked, his mind raced with possibilities. What if the creatures were just the beginning? What if there was something far more dangerous lurking beneath the surface of this planet? As Vorquith packed the samples into his bag, he froze. His scanner had picked up something deep underground, below the terathium deposit. "What is it now?" Threkz asked, exasperated. Vorquith's voice was barely above a whisper. "There's something alive down there." The words hung in the air like a lead weight. Zarek's hand instinctively moved to his blade, his eyes narrowing. "Alive? What kind of something?" "I don't know," Vorquith admitted, his voice shaking slightly. "But it's big, and it's moving." Vrex's mechanical eyes focused on the scientist. "We don't have time for this. The extraction team is en route, and we need to be ready." But Vorquith wasn't backing down. "We can't just leave without knowing what's down there. What if it's another layer of defense? Or worse, what if it's the real threat?" Threkz groaned. "Great, just when I thought we were done." Zarek, ever the pragmatist, stepped forward. "We'll investigate. But quickly. If this is something we can't handle, we pull out." Threkz remained silent for a moment, then gave a curt nod. "Agreed, but no unnecessary risks." With that, the team began their descent. Vorquith led the way, his scanner lighting up the path as they moved deeper into the earth. The walls of the cavern shimmered with veins of terathium, casting an eerie blue glow over everything. The air grew colder, and the oppressive weight of the planet's atmosphere pressed down on them. As they ventured further underground, the tremors grew more frequent. Whatever was moving below was getting closer. Threx's nerves were fraying, his hand gripping his blade tightly. "This better be worth it, Vorquith." Vorquith didn't respond, his focus entirely on the readings from his scanner. The life form, whatever it was massive, and it was moving directly toward them. He couldn't tell if it was aware of their presence, or if it was simply following a predetermined path, but the energy it was emitting was unlike anything he'd ever seen before. Finally, they reached the end of the tunnel, where the walls gave way to a massive chamber. The glow of the terathium was almost blinding here, the entire room pulsing with energy, and at the center of the chamber, half buried in the rock, was something that made the entire team freeze in place. A ship. Ancient and weathered, its surface covered in strange markings and symbols that none of them recognized. The vessel was massive, easily the size of a city block, and it pulsed with the same blue light as the terathium around it. This is impossible," Vorquith whispered, his eyes wide with awe. "This ship, it's older than any known civilization." Threkz stepped forward, his eyes scanning the ship's surface. "An ancient race, perhaps the ones who seeded the terathium here." Zarek's voice was tense. "And the life form?" Vorquith's hand shook as he adjusted the scanner. "It's inside the ship." The team stood in silence, the weight of the discovery sinking in. Whatever was inside that ship had been buried here for millennia, hidden beneath the surface of the most dangerous planet in the galaxy, and now it was waking up. "We can't leave this here," Vorquith said, his voice filled with determination. "We have to report this to the Galactic Council. This could change everything." Threkz, ever the skeptic, shook his head. "Or it could get us all killed. We don't even know what's in there." Vrex's voice was cold and measured. "The mission is complete. We've secured the terathium. This discovery is secondary." "But," Vorquith started, but Zarek cut him off. "He's right, Vorquith. We're traders, not explorers. We report the terathium, and we let the council handle the rest." Vorquith's shoulders slumped, but he knew they were right. The ship, whatever secrets it held, was not their problem. But as they turned to leave the chamber, the ground beneath them shook violently, and a deafening roar echoed through the cavern. The life form had awakened. The roar shook the cavern, sending shards of rock cascading down from the ceiling. The ship's ancient hull vibrated with a low, otherworldly hum as the once dormant entity within came to life. The entire chamber seemed to pulse with a sinister energy, the terathium veins glowing brighter with each tremor. Vrex's voice cut through the chaos. "Fall back, now." the team sprang into action, racing toward the tunnel they had entered from. Malkuth's mind was in overdrive, torn between the monumental discovery and the instinct to survive. His scanner continued to flash in warning, the lifeform's readings growing stronger with each passing second. "We're too late," Threkz shouted as the tunnel behind them collapsed in a shower of debris, sealing their only known exit. "We're trapped." Zarek, ever calm under pressure, scanned the perimeter. "There has to be another way out. Look for cracks, ventilation shafts, anything." Malkuth's mind raced, his eyes darting around the chamber. There was no sign of a clear escape route, but the ship in the center of the room, its design was like nothing they'd seen before. If it had been buried for eons, it might still hold systems that could lead them to safety or doom. "The ship," Malkuth said, breathless. "It might have another exit." Vrex's synthetic eyes locked on the vessel. "It's a risk. We don't know what's inside." "We don't have much of a choice," Zarek growled, gripping his blade tightly. "Whatever's in there, it's better than staying here waiting for that thing to come after us." The roar echoed again, this time closer, as the lifeform beneath the ship stirred, its presence undeniable now. Malkuth couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just an animal or a defense mechanism. Whatever this creature was, it was ancient, powerful, and intelligent. The team moved quickly toward the ship, its looming hull casting a long shadow across the chamber floor. The symbols etched into its surface seemed to shift and move in the dim light, as if they were alive, pulsing with a strange, hypnotic energy. Threkz, despite his earlier skepticism, muttered a prayer under his breath as they approached the alien vessel. "Let's hope this thing's as dead as it looks." Malkuth, his hands shaking with a mix of excitement and terror, ran his scanner over the ship's hull. "There's an entry hatch here, but it's sealed tight. I'm going to try something." Without waiting for a response, he placed his hand on one of the glowing symbols, hoping that somehow this ancient technology would recognize their need. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden hiss, the hatch opened, revealing a dark corridor within the ship. "By the stars," Threkz whispered. "How did you?" "I didn't," Malkuth said, his voice trembling. "It opened on its own." The team hesitated for a heartbeat, staring into the darkness. The air inside was thick with a scent of age and decay, but it was breathable. Threkz led the way, his augmented body taking the first cautious steps into the unknown. The interior of the ship was as alien as its exterior. Strange, organic-looking walls lined the corridor, pulsating softly, as if the ship itself was alive. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the floor. There was no sign of what powered this ancient craft, but whatever it was, it still functioned after countless millennia. "Stay sharp," Zarek warned, his blade at the ready. "If that thing follows us in here, we might not get a second chance." Malkuth's mind was racing with possibilities. This ship, this artifact, could be the key to understanding not just the terathium deposit, but the entire mystery of why Earth was considered a death world. Whoever had built this craft, they had secrets buried deep within this planet, secrets that had been lost to time. As they moved deeper into the ship, Malkuth's scanner began to pick up faint signals. "There's something up ahead," he whispered. "I'm detecting life forms. Multiple." Threkz stiffened. "Not more of those creatures, I hope." Malkuth shook his head. "No, these readings are different. Humanoid. But old. Very old." The corridor led them to a large central chamber, where they were greeted with a sight that took their breath away. Suspended in stasis pods along the walls were figures humanoid, but distinctly alien. Their elongated limbs and strange, angular features were unlike any species they had ever encountered. Malkuth approached one of the pods, his eyes wide with awe. "These are the ship's crew, or what's left of them." Threkz examined one of the pods, his mechanical limbs whirring softly. "They've been in stasis for eons. But why? What were they waiting for?" Before Malkuth could answer, the ground beneath them rumbled again, and the strange hum from earlier intensified. The lifeform, the ancient entity, was growing restless, as if it could sense the presence of intruders within the ship. Zarek gripped his weapon tighter. "We need to keep moving. This place is a tomb, and we're about to join them if we don't find a way out." Vorquith tore his gaze away from the stasis pods, his mind still racing with questions. But Zarek was right, there was no time for answers. They needed to escape before the entity fully awoke. They continued down the corridor, passing more stasis pods and strange, alien machinery. The deeper they went, the more the ship seemed to come alive, its walls pulsing with energy. The air grew heavier, thick with the weight of the unknown. Finally, they reached another chamber, this one smaller, but filled with what looked like control panels. At the center of the room was a large, circular platform that hummed with energy. Threkz approached the platform, his sensors scanning it. "This looks like some kind of teleportation device. It could be our way out." Threkz let out a relieved sigh. Finally, some good news. Vorquith, however, was still focused on the ship's systems. His fingers danced over the alien controls, trying to decipher their meaning. "I think I can activate it, but it's risky. This technology is ancient, and I have no idea where it will send us." Zarek stepped forward, his voice steady. "Anywhere is better than here." The ground shook violently, and the sound of the creature's roar echoed through the ship, closer than ever. "We don't have time for second thoughts," Threkz said, his tone urgent. "Do it, Vorquith." With a deep breath, Vorquith activated the teleportation platform. The air around them crackled with energy as the ship's systems roared to life. The platform glowed brighter and brighter, and within moments, the team was engulfed in a blinding light. For a split second, everything went silent. Then, with a deafening boom, they were gone. The world around them shifted and blurred as they were transported through the ship's ancient teleportation system. When the light finally faded, the team found themselves standing on solid ground once more, only this time, they were no longer in the underground chamber. They were outside. The fresh air hit them like a wave, the scent of Earth's untamed wilderness filling their lungs. They stood on the edge of a vast cliff, overlooking a dense forest that stretched out as far as the eye could see. Vorquith staggered to his feet, his mind still reeling from the teleportation. "We made it." Threkz scanned their surroundings. "It seems we're far from the terathium deposit. The teleportation was successful." Threkz let out a shaky laugh. "I don't care where we are, as long as we're not in that death trap anymore." Zarek, however, remained on edge. "We might have escaped the chamber, but we're still on Earth, and that means we're not safe yet." Vorquith nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. The ship, the life form, the ancient mysteries they had uncovered, they all weighed heavily on his mind. But for now, they had survived. And on Deathworld Earth, that was no small feat. The silence was deceptive, Vorquith thought as he adjusted his breathing mask. The air around them felt clean, but Earth's atmosphere held untold dangers that could attack their systems at any moment. His heart still pounded from the escape, the vivid memory of the creature's roar fresh in his mind. Whatever that ancient being was, it wasn't something they were equipped to fight, not yet, at least. "We need to move," Zarek said, scanning the tree line. His hands were already tightening around his blade, ever on guard. "We may be out of that chamber, but the surface holds its own risks." Threkz groaned, stretching his arms and cracking his neck. "You mean more of those beastly terrors?" He cast a wary glance at the thick trees ahead. "If the underground life forms were bad, I'm not looking forward to what lives up here." Vorquith's focus had already shifted to the ruins of the ancient civilization and what they meant. The ship, the life form, the stasis pods, all pieces of a puzzle that was slowly forming a dangerous picture. There were beings on Earth long before any recorded history, and their technology was beyond anything modern species could comprehend. Whatever secrets they held were intertwined with Earth's hostility toward visitors. "We need a safe spot to regroup," Threkz stated as his mechanical limbs extended and rotated in various directions, sensors whirring. "I've located a ravine not far from here. It will provide cover and fresh water." Zarek nodded, taking the lead. Let's move quickly. We don't know what else might be tracking us. As they started their descent through the rocky terrain, the wind shifted, carrying with it an ominous smell decay mixed with a sharp, unfamiliar tang. Malkuth's nerves tingled. Earth was playing tricks on them again, luring them into a false sense of security. Every breath he took was a reminder that this planet could betray them at any moment. Suddenly, Threx's sensors beeped in rapid succession. Contact ahead. 4 life forms human. Malkuth's heart skipped a beat. They had been warned of this. The humans on Earth were not to be trusted. Known for their resilience, ferocity, and unpredictability, they weren't just the dominant species, they were part of the reason Earth was considered a death world. Threkz looked uneasy. Humans? I thought they were just myths. They're not, Zarek said, his eyes narrowing. Stay low, keep out of sight. If they see us, they'll likely shoot first. The team crouched low, moving silently toward the source of the life signals. They crept through the underbrush until they reached the edge of a clearing, where they saw the humans' 3 men and 1 older figure sitting by a fire. Their clothing was simple but reinforced with armor, and they carried weapons that looked cobbled together yet deadly efficient. Malkuth studied them from the shadows. They don't look like a military force. Could be scavengers or survivalists. Doesn't matter what they are, Zarek whispered. We avoid them. We're not here to start a fight. As they began to back away, one of the humans stood up, a tall, grizzled man with a thick beard and a rifle slung over his shoulder. His eyes scanned the tree line, as if sensing something was amiss. Malkuth held his breath, staying as still as possible. The man turned to the others and spoke, though they were too far away to catch the words. The older figure, likely their leader, nodded and motioned for the group to pack up. It was clear they were on the move. The team remained hidden, watching as the humans collected their gear and set off in the opposite direction. Once they were out of sight, Zarek exhaled softly. That was close. We can't afford to be discovered. Threkz, ever the analyst, remarked, their equipment is impressive, given the conditions. The adaptability of humans is well documented, but this confirms the reports. They've mastered survival on this planet. Mastered? Threkz scoffed. More like they've learned to live with madness. Malkuth, however, was lost in thought. There was something odd about the humans, how they moved, their confidence in the wilderness. He couldn't shake the feeling that they knew something about this place that the team didn't. And if the ancient ship and its secrets were tied to Earth's history, perhaps the humans knew more about the dangers that lurked here. The group moved quickly after the encounter, reaching the ravine Threkz had scouted. It was deep and narrow, with sheer rock walls and a small stream running through the bottom. They set up a temporary camp, grateful for the fresh water and the natural protection the ravine offered. As they settled down to rest, Malkuth pulled out his data pad, reviewing the scans from the underground ship. The energy readings, the symbols, the life form, all of it was connected. But how? His mind buzzed with the possibilities. If they could unlock the technology of that ancient civilization, it could change everything. Perhaps they could even find a way to control the terrors of Earth. We need a plan, Zarek said, interrupting his thoughts. This isn't just a salvage mission anymore. We've uncovered something bigger, and we're not the only ones out here. The humans could be a problem, and we still don't know what that creature in the ship is. We should return to the surface outpost, Threkz suggested. Regroup with the others and report our findings. Malkuth shook his head. No, we can't leave yet. There's something important here. The humans, there's a reason they've survived on this planet for so long. I think they know about the ancient civilization. They might even know what that creature is. Threkz looked skeptical. You're saying we should seek out the humans. Are you mad? We don't have to make contact directly, Malkuth replied. But we need more information. We're flying blind, and that's what's going to get us killed. Zarek nodded slowly. He's right. We need intel, but we can't afford to reveal ourselves. Threkz stood up, his mechanical limbs clicking into place. I'll scout the area. If the humans are nearby, I'll track them and see what they're up to. Be careful, Vorquith warned. We can't risk being detected. Threkz nodded and disappeared into the shadows, his stealth systems engaged. The rest of the team settled in, waiting for his return. The hours passed in tense silence, the weight of the planet pressing down on them. Every sound, every rustle of leaves, felt like a potential threat. Eventually, Threkz returned, his face grim. The humans are moving toward another ruin. It's heavily fortified, and they've set up a perimeter. It looks like they're preparing for something. Vorquith's heart raced. Another ruin? That could be connected to the ship. We need to see what they're after. Zarek frowned. This is getting more dangerous by the minute. If we follow them, we risk exposure. I'll go alone, Vorquith offered. I'm the least likely to be detected. Besides, I need to see this for myself. Threkz looked worried. You sure about this? You don't know what you're walking into. Vorquith nodded. I have to. This could be the key to everything. Zarek sighed. All right. But if things go south, we pull out. No heroics. Vorquith smirked. Wouldn't dream of it. As the team packed up their gear and prepared to move, Vorquith couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something monumental. The humans, the ancient civilization, the creature, all of it was connected, and whatever was waiting for them in that ruin could change the fate of not just this mission, but the galaxy itself. But one thing was certain, on Deathworld Earth, nothing came without a price. The ravine's quiet turned to a low hum of tension as Vorquith and the team moved through the shadows, trailing the humans. Each step felt like treading on a knife's edge, with Earth's wilderness observing them in unseen ways. Every snapping twig and rustling branch could be a prelude to something worse, a trap waiting to spring. Yet, nothing was more dangerous than what the humans were preparing for. Vorquith had studied humanity's military history enough to know that when humans fortified a site, it wasn't because they feared attack. It was because they expected to unleash something that should not be. They were preparing for their own kind of chaos. Zarek gestured toward the perimeter ahead. We've got movement, he whispered. Through the dense foliage, Vorquith caught sight of the humans. They had positioned themselves around the entrance to a ruin. This one was vastly different from the ancient ship they had found below. It was more monolithic, built from dark stone, and laced with strange carvings that seemed to pulse in the moonlight. The air around it buzzed with latent energy, something primal and untouched by time. Looks older than the ship, Threkz muttered as his mechanical arms calibrated his scanning devices. I'm picking up anomalies in the structure. High energy readings, similar to the underground ship. Something inside is still active. Threkz shifted nervously. I don't like this. We're messing with things we don't understand. Vorquith's attention was locked on the human group. One of them, the tall man with a beard, seemed to be in command. He was directing the others to set up what looked like a perimeter of sensor beacons around the ruin's entrance. Whatever they were about to do, they wanted to ensure that no one interrupted. Their equipment looks custom-made, Zarek noted. They're not military, but they're far too organized to be simple scavengers. Mercenaries? Or something else, Vorquith said softly. Look at their precision. They've done this before. Just as Vorquith whispered the words, the humans activated a piece of equipment, a cylindrical device that began emitting a low-frequency hum. The hum resonated through the air, shaking the leaves and reverberating against the stone of the ruin. A soft glow emerged from the device, like a web of light extending toward the carvings on the ruin walls. Threx's eyes widened. What in the void are they doing? Looks like they're trying to trigger something, Threkz said, watching the readings on his sensors spike. The energy levels in the area are off the charts. Whatever's inside that ruin is reacting to them. The human stepped back as the carvings on the stone began to pulse with light, each symbol flickering into life. Vorquith's heart raced. This was it, this was what they had come for. The ruin was alive, and the humans were unlocking its secrets. But as the ground trembled beneath their feet, Vorquith knew it was far from over. Something inside the ruin was stirring. The team watched in stunned silence as the ancient stone door at the center of the ruin began to shift, sliding open with a deep, grinding noise. Dust and debris fell from the stone as the gateway revealed itself. A thick, dark mist poured from within, coiling into the air like a living thing. Vorquith felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over him. Whatever the humans had awakened, it wasn't something they could control. The human, however, seemed undeterred. The bearded leader gave a nod to the others, and they approached the entrance cautiously. Weapons raised, they moved inside the ruin, disappearing into the darkness beyond. "This is bad," Zarek muttered, gripping his blade tighter. "If they're after whatever's in there, we need to find out what it is fast." Vorquith nodded. "We follow them. But we need to be smart about this. We can't let them see us." The team moved in closer, hugging the shadows as they approached the ruin's entrance. The dark mist swirled around their feet as they stepped inside, the air cold and damp. The interior was vast, with high ceilings and walls covered in the same glowing carvings they had seen outside. The energy in the air was palpable, humming through Vorquith's bones. Ahead of them, the humans were moving deeper into the ruin, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The cylindrical device they had activated outside was still emitting its low-frequency hum, guiding them further into the depths. Threx's sensors whirred softly as he scanned the surroundings. "These symbols, they're similar to the ones on the ship, but older, much older. This place might be a control center for the entire underground system." "That doesn't explain the mist," Threkz said, keeping a wary eye on the dark tendrils that seemed to follow them as they moved. "I don't like it. It feels alive." Vorquith couldn't shake the same feeling. The mist seemed to move with purpose, like it was watching them, waiting for them to make a mistake. But what unnerved him more was the possibility that the humans knew exactly what they were doing. They had come prepared for this, and that meant they had knowledge that the team didn't. As they moved deeper into the ruin, the carvings on the walls became more intricate, depicting scenes of great battles, strange creatures, and ancient machines. One image, in particular, caught Vorquith's eye: a massive figure, surrounded by lightning, holding what appeared to be a sphere of energy. The figure seemed to be at the center of everything, a god-like being controlling the chaos. "Whoever built this place," Vorquith whispered, "they were playing with forces far beyond our understanding." Zarek nodded grimly. "And now the humans are trying to take control of it." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, a deep rumble echoing through the walls. The humans ahead had stopped, their attention fixed on something in the distance. Vorquith and the team crept closer, keeping to the shadows. In the center of the chamber, by the soft glow of the carvings, was an enormous pedestal. Atop the pedestal was a crystalline structure, glowing with an intense light that seemed to pulse in time with the hum of the device the humans had brought. The air around it crackled with energy, and Vorquith could feel the power emanating from it. "That must be it," Threkz whispered. "That's what they're after." But before anyone could move, the bearded leader stepped forward, raising his hand toward the crystal. As his fingers brushed the surface, the entire ruin shook violently, and the mist began to swirl faster, growing thicker and more aggressive. "What are they doing?" Zarek hissed. Vorquith's mind raced. The humans were trying to harness the energy of the crystal, but they didn't understand what they were dealing with. The mist wasn't just some atmospheric anomaly, it was a defense mechanism, and it was reacting to their intrusion. "We have to stop them," Vorquith said, stepping forward. But it was too late. The crystal flared with blinding light, and the mist surged toward the humans, wrapping around them like tendrils. Their screams echoed through the chamber as the mist dragged them toward the crystal, their bodies contorting and twisting as they were consumed by the energy. Vorquith and the team watched in horror as the humans were pulled into the crystal, their forms disintegrating into pure energy. "We need to get out of here now," Zarek shouted. The team turned and ran, the ruin collapsing around them as the energy within the crystal spiraled out of control. The walls cracked, and the carvings flickered as the ancient structure began to fall apart. Vorquith's heart pounded in his chest as they sprinted for the exit, the mist chasing them through the corridors. He could feel the raw power of the crystal behind them, threatening to tear the entire ruin apart. As they burst through the entrance and into the open air, the ruin collapsed in on itself with a deafening roar, sending a shockwave through the ground. The team stumbled and fell as the ground buckled beneath them, the remains of the ruins sinking into the earth. For a moment there was silence. Then, slowly, Malkuth pushed himself to his feet, breathing heavily. The ruin was gone, buried beneath the earth, and with it, the crystal and whatever ancient power it had held. "We need to leave," Threkz said, his voice strained. "Before anything else happens." Malkuth nodded, his mind still reeling from what they had just witnessed. The humans had been wiped out, consumed by the very thing they sought to control. But the real question lingered in his mind: what had they unleashed? And more importantly, was it still out there, waiting for them? Malkuth and the others moved away from the collapse as quickly as they could manage, but the trembling ground beneath their feet didn't make it easy. The sight of the ruin sinking into the earth behind them like some great beast returning to its slumber haunted every hurried step they took. The thick mist had dispersed after the collapse, seemingly retreating into the very ground that had swallowed the ruin. There was no sign of the humans, no trace left of their equipment or their bodies. It was as though Earth had claimed them fully, not even leaving a warning for anyone foolish enough to come next. Once they were a safe distance away, the group finally slowed down, their bodies aching from the strain of the escape. Malkuth leaned against a massive boulder, catching his breath, while Threkz scanned the surroundings with cautious eyes. "We lost the humans," Threkz grunted, shaking his head. "I'm not sure if we gained anything from this." "We gained one thing," Malkuth replied between breaths. "A very important piece of knowledge: do not mess with Earth's ancient technology." Threkz sat on the ground nearby, visibly shaken. "I don't understand what they thought they were doing. Why would anyone willingly activate something like that?" "Desperation," Threkz answered. He was calibrating his mechanical arms, checking the damage they had taken during the escape. "If you're a scavenger or mercenary looking to profit, finding technology that no one else has would seem like a golden opportunity." "But it wasn't a treasure," Threkz protested. "It was a trap." Malkuth glanced back at the faint outlines of the collapsed ruin in the distance. "It was both." Threkz continued his analysis. "My guess? Those humans didn't fully understand what they were dealing with. They had enough knowledge to activate it, but not enough to control it. That crystal, whatever it was, might have been a power source or a key to something bigger." "Or something deadlier," Threkz muttered, wiping the sweat from his brow. A silence fell over the group as they sat together, surrounded by the untouched wilderness of Earth. The forest around them seemed to have returned to its eerie quiet, as though the chaos of the collapse had never occurred. The birds and insects resumed their calls, and the wind rustled through the trees with a strange calmness that unsettled Malkuth even more than the earlier danger. "We need to report this," Threkz finally said. "We were sent to study the planet, to gather intel on Earth's hidden assets. This, whatever that ruin was, needs to be documented." Malkuth frowned. "Documented, yes, but I'm not sure anyone back home will understand the scope of what we've just encountered. The humans were desperate to tap into it, and look what happened to them." "Doesn't matter," Threkz replied firmly. "The Council will want to know about it, regardless of the risks." Threkz stood up, brushing off dirt from his legs. "We should get moving then. We've seen enough here to know this planet is far more dangerous than we anticipated." But as Malkuth rose to his feet, a sudden noise caught his attention, a low rumbling, far deeper than anything they had experienced before. It was distant, yet the ground beneath their feet vibrated with its power. Threks's face paled. "What is that?" Malkuth didn't have an answer. He turned toward the horizon, his sharp eyes scanning the tree line. At first, there was nothing, only the endless stretch of forest in every direction. But then he saw a faint line of disturbance cutting through the trees. It was moving fast, something large, something beyond anything they had witnessed so far. "We need to move," Malkuth said quickly. "Now." The group didn't hesitate. They took off running, the rumbling growing louder behind them with every passing second. Whatever was coming, it wasn't natural. "Is it more ruins collapsing?" Zarek asked, his voice tense. "No," Threkz replied, his tone dark. "It's something alive." They sprinted through the forest, their path taking them back toward the shuttle. The familiar tension of Earth's untamed wilds returned, reminding them that this planet was still watching, still waiting for the right moment to strike. The ground behind them began to shake with more intensity. Trees swayed violently, their roots threatening to tear free from the earth. The distant disturbance had become a full-scale quake, and the noise was now a deep, guttural roar, like the planet itself was waking from slumber. As they neared the clearing where their shuttle had landed, the team came to a sudden stop. A massive figure emerged from the trees, blocking their path. It was unlike anything they had seen before, a towering creature, easily 3 times their height, covered in thick, armored scales. Its body was segmented, with legs that dug into the ground like tree trunks, and eyes that glowed faintly in the fading sunlight. Zarek drew his weapon immediately, but Malkuth raised a hand. "Wait." The creature stood still, watching them with an intelligence that was unmistakable. It was no simple beast, this was something more. Something ancient. Malkuth's mind raced. The creature's presence didn't seem random. It had appeared right after the collapse of the ruin, as though it had been drawn to the disturbance. Perhaps it was even a guardian of sorts, protecting whatever lay hidden beneath Earth's surface. "We're not here to fight," Malkuth said cautiously, his voice calm but firm. "We don't want any trouble." The creature tilted its massive head, its glowing eyes narrowing as it studied them. For a moment, Malkuth thought they were doomed, that the creature would strike them down without warning. But then, with a deep, rumbling growl, it stepped aside, allowing them to pass. The team exchanged uneasy glances, but they didn't waste the opportunity. They moved quickly, their steps careful as they passed the creature. Its eyes followed them the entire way, but it made no move to attack. As they reached the clearing and saw the shuttle in the distance, Malkuth couldn't help but feel a strange sense of gratitude. The creature had spared them for now. But the planet's mysteries were far from over. Once they were safely aboard the shuttle, Zarek let out a long sigh of relief. That was too close. Malkuth nodded, but his thoughts were still on the creature and the ruin. There was more to Earth than they had ever imagined. The ancient technology, the crystal, the mist, and now the Guardian's Earth was hiding secrets that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. But those secrets came with a price. "We need to leave," Threkz said, his hands moving over the shuttle's controls. "Get this information back to the Council before it's too late." Malkuth agreed, but as the shuttle lifted off the ground and soared into the sky, he couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface. There were layers to this planet, each more dangerous and unpredictable than the last. And somewhere, deep beneath the surface, the ancient power they had encountered was still alive, still waiting. As the shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere and into the safety of space, Malkuth glanced out the window at the blue planet below. A death world, yes, but one filled with unimaginable potential. And whatever the future held, Earth's secrets would not stay buried forever. As the shuttle drifted through the vastness of space, the hum of the engines seemed to match the racing thoughts swirling in Malkuth's mind. The blue orb of Earth receded into the distance, shrinking to a dot in the cosmic tapestry. He couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding that clung to him, like a shadow he couldn't quite outrun. Threkz sat at the control panel, eyes glued to the screens as they established a communication link back to their home world. The green and blue planet was now a backdrop of shifting colors, almost peaceful, yet every memory of danger flashed vividly before Malkuth's eyes. "It's going to take us a while to get back," Zarek said, his voice breaking the silence. He was leaning back in his seat, still trying to catch his breath. "At least a cycle or 2. Malkuth nodded, but remained focused on the screens. "We need to prepare our report. The Council won't take this lightly." "Do you think they'll believe us?" Threkz asked, his brow furrowed in thought. What we saw, it's beyond anything we could have imagined." "They'll have to believe it," Vorquith replied, voice steady. "The data we collected on the shuttle should provide enough proof, and we need to include what we encountered. Every detail matters." Threx's fingers flew over the controls, and a holographic display projected into the cabin, depicting a rotating model of Earth with highlighted areas indicating their points of interest. "We need to make this report compelling. If we're going to convince them to take us seriously, we need to explain why Earth is so dangerous. We can't let anyone else fall victim to its secrets." Vorquith leaned closer, tracing a finger along the hologram. "We should emphasize the ancient ruins, the crystal, and the guardian creature we encountered. The dangers are not just in the flora and fauna, they're deeply embedded in the technology. It's like Earth itself has a will to protect what's buried below." "But how do we present it?" Zarek questioned, crossing his arms. "They'll want to know why we didn't secure the crystal or try to control it." "Because we're not fools," Threkz interjected, his tone sharp. "We could have easily become part of the ruins ourselves. That's what we need to communicate, the risks versus the potential benefits." Threkz chimed in. "And the humanity we saw, their desperation. We need to make it clear that any attempt to exploit Earth's resources will end in catastrophe." A tense silence filled the cabin as each member of the team considered their roles in this mission. They weren't just traders anymore, they were messengers of a grave warning. The shuttle's engines shifted, and the familiar sights of the cosmos faded into blackness as they engaged the faster-than-light drives. Vorquith felt a jolt as the stars around them elongated into streaks of light. As the ship propelled itself through the void, Vorquith found himself lost in thought. His mind drifted back to the guardian creature, the raw power it had emanated, its otherworldly presence, and he couldn't shake the feeling that it had been watching over something far more significant than mere ruins. With their trajectory set, Vorquith pushed away from the control panel and moved to the small galley at the back of the shuttle. He needed a moment to himself, to think, to process everything that had happened. He poured himself a drink, the liquid shimmering in the artificial light. But it tasted flat, too synthetic for the chaos of their recent experiences. "Hey, Vorquith," Threkz called from the cockpit. "You all right?" Vorquith turned to face him, forcing a smile. "Just processing everything. It's a lot to take in." "I get that," Threkz replied, leaning back in his seat. "But remember, we're a team. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Vorquith appreciated the sentiment, but couldn't shake his sense of dread. As he returned to the cockpit, he caught Zarek's eye, his expression unreadable. "What's bothering you?" Zarek asked, crossing his arms. "You've been quiet since we left Earth." "Just thinking about the implications of what we found," Vorquith admitted. "This isn't just about trading anymore. We stumbled upon something huge, something that could change the very fabric of our understanding of the galaxy." "Like what?" Threkz prompted, still focused on the screens. "Think about it," Vorquith said, pacing the cramped space of the shuttle. "Earth is a repository of ancient technology. If the Council realizes the potential hidden beneath its surface, they might not be able to resist trying to extract it. But that would only invite disaster." "More like a reckoning," Zarek muttered. "The humans we met, they were playing with forces beyond their control. Imagine what the Council would do with that kind of power." "The Council doesn't think like us," Threkz chimed in, finally turning to Vorquith. "They'll see opportunity, not risk. They'll want to exploit it." Vorquith nodded, the weight of realization settling over him. "And if they send more teams to Earth without knowing what we know, it could lead to chaos. We have to prepare a counterargument. We need to warn them." As they continued their journey through space, they began drafting their report, sharing ideas and concerns. With each passing moment, the gravity of their discovery grew heavier. Days passed in the confined space of the shuttle, the stars their only company. As they neared their home system, the tension within the cabin grew palpable. Vorquith could feel it pressing against him, an invisible weight reminding him of the enormity of their task. The ship finally entered their home planet's atmosphere, the vibrant colors of their world bleeding into view. He felt a surge of both relief and dread. They were returning to safety, but they were also bringing with them a harrowing tale. As the shuttle touched down, the familiar sight of their spaceport came into view, bustling with activity. Malkuth's heart raced with anticipation, the moment they'd been waiting for finally here. They disembarked, met by a small delegation of council officials. Malkuth stepped forward, ready to deliver their message, when a familiar face caught his eye. It was a human, a young man, perhaps in his early 30s, with dark hair and a fierce determination in his gaze. "Are you Malkuth?" the human asked, stepping closer. "Yes," Malkuth replied, confused. "Who are you?" "My name is David. I need to talk to you about Earth. You were there, weren't you? You encountered something. Something dangerous." The words hung in the air between them, and Malkuth felt a chill run down his spine. "Yes, we did. But how do you know?" "Because," David said, a grave look crossing his face, "I'm not the only one searching for answers. You're not safe here." Before Malkuth could respond, David continued, urgency lacing his voice. "You need to come with me. We're running out of time." Malkuth stared at David, his mind racing. The urgency in the human's voice sent a ripple of alarm through him. "What do you mean? We're not safe here. What's going on?" David glanced around, his eyes scanning the spaceport as if expecting threats to emerge from the shadows. "I can't explain everything here. Just know that the crystal you found on Earth is far more dangerous than you realize. It's attracted attention, and there are forces at work that you can't even begin to imagine." Malkuth exchanged worried glances with his companions. "Forces? What kind of forces?" "Powerful ones. And they're coming for you," David replied, urgency spilling over in his tone. "We need to leave now. I have a ship nearby that can get us out of here, but we don't have much time." Threkz stepped forward, his brows knitted in confusion. "What do you know about the crystal? We were just there." "Listen to me," David interrupted, his voice sharp. "That crystal is a beacon. It calls to those who seek power and control. You might think you're safe because you're on your home planet, but the moment you stepped back into the public eye, you made yourselves targets." Zarek shook his head. "You don't understand. We just came from a place filled with peril. We can handle ourselves." David's eyes narrowed, a mix of disbelief and concern swirling in his gaze. "No, you don't understand. What you encountered on Earth isn't just some remote danger. It's a part of a much larger conflict that's brewing in the galaxy." Malkuth felt a sense of unease settle over him. What kind of conflict? "The kind that could spell doom for entire races," David replied, glancing around again, lowering his voice. "Listen, I know this sounds crazy, but there are others powerful beings who want what you have. They won't hesitate to come after you." "We need to hear him out," Threkz said, his tone steady. "If what he says is true, we can't afford to ignore it." Malkuth felt a pang of conflict in his gut. They had only just returned, and their responsibilities to the council were immense. But the look in David's eyes told him that there was no time for hesitation. "All right," Malkuth finally said. "We'll come with you, but you need to explain everything on the way." David nodded, relief washing over his features. "Good. Follow me." As they hurried through the spaceport, Malkuth couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted. The crowd bustled around them, oblivious to the weight of the danger looming over their heads. David led them to a small craft tucked away in a dimly lit hangar, its sleek exterior a stark contrast to the larger vessels in the area. "This is it," David said, gesturing to the ship. "It's fast and equipped for stealth. We can avoid detection." The four traders exchanged glances, feeling a mixture of apprehension and intrigue. They boarded the ship, and David slid into the pilot's seat, his fingers dancing over the controls. As the engines roared to life, Malkuth took a seat next to him. "Now, tell us everything." David's expression grew serious as he initiated the pre-launch sequence. "What you found on Earth is called the Heart of Gaia, a relic from a civilization long gone. It holds immense power, And it's not just a crystal. It's a conduit for energy that can manipulate reality itself. Manipulate reality? Malkuth repeated, skepticism creeping into his voice. David nodded. That's why the Guardians are there to protect it. But they're not the only ones interested. There are factions in the galaxy, ancient ones that have been searching for it for centuries. If they find out it's been activated, they will come for it. They'll come for you. Zarek leaned forward, eyes wide. What do these factions want with it? Control, David replied, his voice grim. They want to harness its power for their own ends. There are rumors of a war brewing, a war that could engulf countless worlds, including yours. Malkuth felt a chill creep up his spine. And you think they'll come here? They'll come for the crystal first, and once they realize it's connected to you, they'll stop at nothing to find you, David warned, urgency threading through his voice. That's why we need to leave. As the ship blasted off into the atmosphere, Malkuth felt a mix of adrenaline and dread. They were escaping one danger only to plunge into another. Where are we going? Threkz asked, glancing around the small craft. We need to regroup, David replied, his eyes focused on the stars outside. There's a hidden station where we can lay low and plan our next move. I have contacts there who can help. The ship raced through the void, stars streaking past like shooting comets. Malkuth could feel the tension in the air, a silent agreement that they were in this together, no matter the outcome. As they traveled, David explained the factions that sought the heart of Gaia. He described ancient races that had existed long before the Council was formed, some of which were still locked in bitter conflict over power and resources. The history of the galaxy was steeped in betrayal and ambition, a constant struggle for dominance. I've been tracking these factions for a while, David continued. I have intel that suggests one of the more aggressive factions, the Valorians, are mobilizing for an attack. They've been known to obliterate entire planets to claim what they desire. Zarek's expression turned grave. And you think they'll come for us next? If they find out you're connected to the heart, yes, David replied, determination etched into his features. But if we stay smart and move quickly, we can outmaneuver them. Hours passed as they flew deeper into the unknown. Malkuth's mind raced with possibilities. Would the Council believe their warnings? Would they act before it was too late? Finally, David pointed to a distant star, a glimmer of light amid the darkness. There it is, the station. As they approached, Malkuth felt a sense of hope rising within him. Perhaps here they would find allies, resources, and a plan to confront the looming threat. But as they docked, a sense of unease washed over him. They were stepping into a new world, one that promised both refuge and danger. As they exited the ship, Malkuth glanced back at their vessel. It felt like a lifeline, but it also represented the beginning of a tumultuous journey. He was determined to face whatever lay ahead, even if it meant confronting the very beings that sought to control the heart of Gaia. Stay close, David warned as they entered the station. Trust no one, not even those who seem friendly. Malkuth took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their mission settle over him like a cloak. This was only the beginning of their fight, a fight that would test their resolve, their friendship, and the very essence of what it meant to be alive in a universe filled with peril and wonder. And as he stepped into the station, he knew one thing for certain: they were far from done. The straws of fate had been drawn, and now they had to navigate the web of consequences that would define their destinies. The station was a labyrinth of flickering lights and busy corridors, a stark contrast to the quiet isolation of space. Malkuth took a moment to absorb his surroundings. Vendors hawked their wares, traders haggled over prices, and a myriad of alien races mingled in a chaotic yet vibrant marketplace. The air buzzed with a cacophony of languages, the scent of exotic foods mingling with the tang of machinery. "Stay alert," David murmured, leading the group through the throng of beings. "This place can be a haven or a trap, depending on who you encounter." Malkuth nodded, his instincts sharpening. He scanned the crowd, noting the mixed expressions of curiosity and suspicion directed at them. They were outsiders, and in a place like this, that made them vulnerable. They stopped at a small booth run by a frail-looking creature with a dozen eyes and tentacles that coiled around the various trinkets laid out before him. "Ah, travelers," the vendor croaked, his many eyes gleaming with interest. "What brings you to my humble stall?" David stepped forward, his demeanor shifting to one of authority. "We need information about the Valorians and any movements they've been making in this sector." The vendor's eyes narrowed, a look of apprehension crossing his features. "Information can be costly, human, and dangerous. The Valorians are not to be trifled with." "Neither are we," Zarek interjected, a hint of menace in his voice. "What do you know?" The vendor hesitated, weighing his options. "They've been gathering forces, recruiting mercenaries and traders alike. Word is they plan to strike soon, targeting key trade routes to establish control. If you're connected to the heart, you'd be wise to keep your head down." "Where can we find their base of operations?" David pressed, determination lacing his voice. The vendor's tentacles twisted nervously. "I can give you a location, but you'll need protection. They have eyes everywhere. I suggest you find allies among the more neutral factions here. Not everyone will welcome your kind, but some may see the benefit in aiding you against the Valorians." Vorquith exchanged glances with his companions. The idea of finding allies was daunting, but it was a necessity. "Can you direct us to someone who can help?" The vendor nodded, his eyes darting around as if fearing someone might overhear. "Head to the back of the station, to the Emerald Lounge. It's a gathering spot for those looking to make deals or settle scores. Be cautious, trust is scarce." As they made their way through the station, Vorquith felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. They were risking everything to protect something they had only just begun to understand. What if they failed? What if the Valorians found them first? When they finally reached the Emerald Lounge, the atmosphere shifted. The room was dimly lit, filled with low conversations and the clinking of glasses. Various alien races mingled, each one more distinct than the last, with colorful skin and bizarre features that Vorquith could hardly comprehend. David approached the bar, where a rugged-looking bartender with a cybernetic arm wiped down the counter. "We're looking for information on the Valorians. We need to connect with someone who can help us." The bartender glanced at them, his expression unreadable. "You sure you want to get involved in that mess? They don't take kindly to outsiders meddling in their affairs." "We're not outsiders anymore," Vorquith asserted, stepping forward. "We have something they want." The bartender raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That so? Well, you might find what you're looking for. There's a fellow named Zelthar. He deals in rare artifacts and has connections with several factions. If anyone knows how to navigate the Valorians, it's him." "Where can we find him?" David asked, his tone serious. "Last I heard, he was in the back room. Just don't make a scene. The last group that did ended up in pieces." They exchanged determined glances and pushed deeper into the lounge, the air thick with tension. Vorquith led the way, heart pounding in his chest. As they approached the back room, a faint murmur of conversation could be heard through the door. "Let me do the talking," David advised as they paused outside. "I can handle myself." With a nod, David pushed the door open, revealing a shadowy room filled with the soft glow of bioluminescent creatures. At the center sat Zelthar, a tall being with elongated features and vibrant green skin. His eyes flickered with interest as he regarded the newcomers. "Ah, humans," Zelthar said, his voice smooth like silk. "What brings you to my humble establishment?" "We need information on the Valorians," David stated without preamble. "We hear you can help us." Zelthar leaned back, fingers steepling thoughtfully. "The Valorians are a dangerous lot, but why should I help you?" "We have something they want," Vorquith interjected. "And if they find us first, we'll all be in danger. You'd be wise to aid us." A flicker of amusement crossed Zelthar's face. "Very well, but nothing comes without a price. Information is valuable, and trust me, I have my own enemies to deal with." "What do you want?" David asked, irritation seeping into his tone. "A favor in return. It's a simple task, a delivery to a contact of mine. You handle that, and I'll give you all the intel you need on the Valorians." Malkuth exchanged wary glances with his companions. "What's the delivery?" Zelthar grinned, revealing sharp teeth. "An artifact of my own, a relic that's better left out of the wrong hands. You can find it at a nearby trading post. Get it to my contact, and then we'll talk." "Sounds simple enough," Zarek remarked, though skepticism laced his voice. "Be careful," Zelthar warned, his tone dropping. "There are eyes everywhere, and the Valorians won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who stands in their way." As they departed from the lounge, Malkuth felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Their mission was taking shape, but the stakes were rising with each step they took. Every choice seemed to deepen their entanglement in a conflict larger than any of them had anticipated. "Let's move," David urged, leading them back through the crowded corridors of the station. "We don't have time to waste." As they navigated through the throng of beings, Malkuth couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The marketplace buzzed with life, but every glance felt heavy with scrutiny, every whisper a potential threat. "We need to be quick and stealthy," he suggested, casting worried glances over his shoulder. "The longer we linger, the greater the chance we'll draw unwanted attention." The others nodded in agreement. They slipped into an alleyway, away from the bustling crowd, and made their way toward the trading post. Malkuth felt his pulse quicken as they approached their destination. This was the moment they would either solidify their place in the fight against the Valorians or seal their doom. They arrived at the trading post, a small, unassuming building nestled between larger structures. The sign above the door creaked gently in the breeze, advertising exotic goods from across the galaxy. Malkuth felt a wave of apprehension wash over him. "Stay close," David urged as they stepped inside, the dim light casting shadows across the cluttered interior. Various artifacts and trinkets were strewn about, and the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and spice. A figure emerged from the shadows, a wiry being with deep-set eyes and a cautious demeanor. "You Zelthar's crew?" he asked, voice low and gravelly. "Yeah," David replied, stepping forward. "We have an artifact for you." The figure glanced around, wary. "You're not followed, are you?" "Just give us the contact details, and we'll be on our way," Malkuth said, urgency lacing his voice. The figure nodded, producing a small data chip. "Take this. It contains the coordinates for the drop-off. But you need to be careful. If you run into Valorians, they won't show mercy." Malkuth felt the weight of the chip in his hand, a tangible reminder of the risk they were taking. "We'll manage. Just point us in the right direction." With that, they exited the trading post and hurried back into the alleyway. As they moved, the tension in the air thickened, an ominous feeling settling over them. "Let's get this done quickly," Zarek urged, his voice tense. "We need to return to Zelthar with the intel he promised." They began making their way toward the coordinates on the data chip, their hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. Each step felt heavier, a reminder of the dangers lurking just beyond the shadows. As they approached the drop-off point, a sense of foreboding washed over Malkuth. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching them, a silent threat that coiled in the back of his mind. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them, and Malkuth turned to see a group of figures emerging from the darkness. Valorians. Tall and imposing, their skin glistened like polished obsidian, and their eyes glowed with a fierce intensity. "Look what we have here," one of the Valorians sneered, brandishing a weapon. A little party of outsiders wandering too far from home. Malkuth's heart raced as they instinctively fell into a defensive formation. This was it, the moment they had feared. The stakes had risen, and the confrontation was inevitable. "Stay back," David shouted, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We're not looking for trouble." "Too late for that," the lead Valorian growled, stepping forward with predatory grace. "You've crossed into our territory, and now you will pay the price." Malkuth felt the weight of the data chip in his pocket, the artifact they had come to deliver. They were outnumbered, but he refused to back down. we're here on business. We don't want any trouble, but we won't be intimidated." "Business?" the Valorian mocked, glancing at his comrades. "What business could you possibly have here?" David stepped forward, his eyes steely. "We have something that concerns you, the heart of Gaia." At the mention of the crystal, the Valorians froze, their expressions shifting from amusement to intrigue. "What do you know of the heart?" the lead Valorian demanded, voice low and dangerous. Vorquith exchanged glances with his companions, uncertainty swirling within him. He could sense the tension crackling in the air, the potential for violence hanging heavy over them. This was their chance to either negotiate or face the wrath of the Valorians. "We know it's a powerful artifact, and we're not here to take it from you," David asserted. "But we need to find a way to coexist without conflict." The lead Valorian's expression hardened. "You think you can negotiate with us? You're foolish to believe that your words hold any power here." Vorquith stepped forward, fueled by desperation. "We're willing to make a deal. We can help you, but you need to understand that this isn't just about power, it's about survival for all of us." A flicker of hesitation crossed the Valorian's face, and Vorquith seized the moment. "We're on the same side in this fight. If the heart falls into the wrong hands, it could spell disaster for every being in this galaxy, including yours." The Valorians exchanged glances, a silent debate unfolding among them. The lead Valorian regarded Vorquith with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "What kind of deal do you propose?" he finally asked, voice cautious. Vorquith took a deep breath, knowing this was their moment to sway the outcome. "Help us protect the heart. We can work together to ensure it doesn't fall into the hands of those who would abuse its power. In return, we can assist you against any threats you face." The Valorian's eyes narrowed, weighing the proposition. "You want to ally with us? And why should we trust you?" "Because the alternative is chaos," David interjected, his voice firm. "We can help each other survive. The galaxy is filled with enemies, and if we're divided, we're all doomed." The lead Valorian studied them for a long moment, the tension palpable. "Very well. We'll consider your proposal, but know this, if you betray us, you will not live to regret it." With a nod, he motioned for his companions to lower their weapons. Vorquith felt a rush of relief, but he knew their troubles were far from over. They had managed to avert immediate danger, but the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. As the Valorians retreated, Vorquith turned to his companions, a mixture of disbelief and hope swirling within him. "We did it. But we need to stay vigilant." David nodded, determination etched on his features. "We've bought ourselves some time, but we need to get back to Zelthar and find a way to strengthen our position. This is just the beginning." With newfound resolve, they continued on their mission, aware that the straws of fate had shifted once again. Together, they would navigate the chaos of a galaxy on the brink of war, forging alliances and confronting the shadows that threatened to consume them all. The weight of the Valorians' attention lingered in the air as Vorquith and his companions hurried back toward Zelthar's lounge. The tension from their encounter still pulsed in his veins, but there was a flicker of hope kindling in his chest. They had successfully negotiated a temporary truce, and that was more than he had dared to hope for. As they retraced their steps through the bustling marketplace, Vorquith couldn't shake the feeling that they were still being watched. He scanned the crowd, but there was no sign of the Valorians. Instead, merchants continued their business, vendors shouted over one another, and the vibrant sounds of the station enveloped him. "We need to regroup and assess our next steps," David said, urgency coloring his tone. "Zelthar might have more insights now that we've made contact with the Valorians." They entered the Emerald Lounge once more, the familiar dim light casting an almost comforting glow over the chaotic scene. Zelthar was seated at the same table, his posture relaxed but his expression keen as they approached. "Well, you've returned sooner than I anticipated," Zelthar remarked, his sharp eyes glinting with curiosity. "We need to talk," David said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. Zelthar gestured for them to sit, the smile on his face shifting to a more serious demeanor. I can see the tension in your eyes. You've had an encounter, haven't you? Yeah, Vorquith said, leaning forward. The Valorians found us, but we managed to negotiate a temporary truce. We're looking for a way to ally with them against a larger threat. Zelthar raised an eyebrow, intrigued. That's bold. Most would run at the sight of a Valorian. What kind of threat are you talking about? The heart of Gaia, David replied. We believe that if it falls into the wrong hands, it could lead to devastation across the galaxy, affecting even the Valorians. They seem to understand that, but we need to solidify this alliance. Zelthar's expression turned thoughtful, his eyes narrowing as he processed the information. You may be onto something. The Valorians are not known for their foresight, but they do recognize threats when they see them. If you can convince them of the potential danger, you may gain their trust. Vorquith felt a surge of hope. What do we need to do next? First, we need to gather more information about the heart and its current whereabouts, Zelthar said, his voice steady. There are whispers of a faction interested in acquiring it for themselves, and that could very well be the catalyst that brings the Valorians to their knees. Where do we start? Zarek asked, his brows furrowing in concentration. There's an old contact of mine named Lureen. She's been known to dabble in artifacts, and her connections run deep, Zelthar replied, his fingers drumming on the table. She's not easy to find, but if anyone has leads on the heart, it's her. David nodded, determination lighting his eyes. Then we need to find her. Do you have a location? Zelthar reached into his pocket and produced a small data chip. Here, it contains the last known coordinates of her base, but be warned, Lureen can be unpredictable. Approach her with caution and don't show weakness. Vorquith took the chip, feeling its cold surface in his palm. We'll be careful. Good. Time is of the essence. The longer we wait, the more dangerous the situation becomes, Zelthar urged, his voice low and serious. Let's move, David commanded, standing up from the table. The rest of the group followed suit, a renewed sense of purpose driving them forward. As they navigated back through the bustling corridors of the station, Vorquith couldn't shake the feeling of being on the edge of something monumental. They were pushing further into the unknown, and with every step, the stakes grew higher. Arriving at the coordinates, they found themselves outside a run-down building at the edge of the station. Its exterior was battered, with flickering lights, the entrance like a beacon of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Stay alert, Vorquith whispered, his instincts flaring as they approached the door. We don't know what to expect inside. David nodded, pushing the door open cautiously. Inside, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The dim lighting cloaked the room in shadows, and the air was thick with the scent of old books and metal. Lureen, David called out, his voice echoing through the silence. A figure stepped from the shadows, a tall being with sharp features and vibrant blue skin. Lureen regarded them with a piercing gaze, a flicker of recognition sparking in her eyes. Visitors? Rarely do I receive uninvited guests. We're looking for information, Vorquith said, stepping forward. We need to know about the heart of Gaia and its current whereabouts. Lureen's expression shifted, curiosity mingling with amusement. The heart? Such a trinket can bring both great power and great peril. What do you seek with it? David stepped in, his voice firm. We need to protect it from those who would misuse its power, including the Valorians. We've already encountered them and negotiated a temporary truce. A truce? Lureen chuckled, an unsettling sound that echoed in the dim space. You think that will hold? The Valorians are not known for their cooperation. We know that, Zarek replied, frustration edging his tone. But we're not here to make enemies. We need your help. Lureen's eyes glinted with intrigue. Very well. If you wish to find the heart, you'll have to prove your worth. There are trials that await you, tests of both mind and spirit. What kind of trials? Vorquith asked, apprehension creeping into his voice. Only the worthy can wield the heart's power, Lureen replied cryptically. You must face your fears and demonstrate your understanding of balance. Only then will the path reveal itself. David exchanged glances with the others, uncertainty rippling through the group. "We're ready for whatever comes our way," he said, a note of defiance in his tone. "Then let the trials begin," Lorene declared, her voice resonating in the room as shadows began to shift around them, enveloping them in a whirl of darkness. As the shadows enveloped them, Malkuth felt a strange sensation, as if he were being pulled into a different realm altogether. It was an odd feeling, one that brought both trepidation and a flicker of excitement. Lorene's words echoed in his mind. "You must face your fears and demonstrate your understanding of balance." The darkness receded to reveal a vast expanse, a seemingly endless field of ethereal light. The ground shimmered like glass beneath their feet, casting reflections of their anxious faces. In the distance, Malkuth could see 3 towering structures, each one pulsating with a different hue: red, blue, and green. "Choose wisely," Lorene's voice resonated from the air around them, as if she were everywhere and nowhere at once. "Each structure represents a trial. You will face what you fear most within its walls." David squared his shoulders, his jaw set with determination. "We can do this. We face our fears together." "Which one do we tackle first?" Zarek asked, glancing between the 3 structures. "The red one," Malkuth decided, feeling an instinctive pull toward it. "It feels charged with energy." As they approached the red structure, the air grew thick with tension. The entrance loomed before them, an archway that beckoned like an open maw. Malkuth exchanged nervous glances with his companions before stepping inside, the world shifting yet again. Inside the structure, the atmosphere felt charged, the walls vibrating with a low hum. Malkuth found himself standing in a vast arena, the ground beneath him shifting as if alive. In front of him materialized a monstrous figure, towering over him with an ominous glare. It resembled a colossal beast, with scales like molten lava and eyes burning with fury. "Face me, human," the creature roared, shaking the arena with its voice. "You fear death, do you not?" Malkuth's heart raced. "I do," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I also fear what comes after, the unknown." "Then embrace it," the creature thundered, lunging toward him. Time seemed to slow as Malkuth instinctively dodged to the side, his body moving of its own accord. He felt the heat of the beast's breath as it whizzed past him. "No, this isn't how it ends," he shouted, determination flooding his veins. He began to run, weaving through the arena, using his surroundings to his advantage. The fear of death was powerful, but he realized something profound. It was not his end he feared, but the loss of everything he cherished, the people he loved, the life he fought for. Malkuth turned, facing the creature head-on. "You will not claim me," he yelled, adrenaline surging through him. "I choose to live, I choose to fight." With a roar, the creature lunged again, but this time Malkuth stood firm. He raised his arms, channeling every ounce of strength and conviction into his stance. To his surprise, the beast paused, confusion flickering in its fiery gaze. "Why do you resist?" it asked, its voice no longer filled with malice but curiosity. "Because fear is a choice," Malkuth declared, feeling the truth of his words resonate within him. "I refuse to let it define me." As if acknowledging his bravery, the creature dissipated into a swirl of smoke, leaving Malkuth standing alone in the arena. The walls around him began to shift, transforming into a tranquil landscape, a serene forest filled with vibrant colors and soothing sounds. "Trial 1 completed," Lorene's voice echoed again, her tone imbued with approval. "You have faced death and emerged stronger." "Let's move on," David urged, steeling himself for the next challenge. They walked toward the blue structure, its cool light calming their senses. As they entered, the temperature dropped, and they found themselves in an icy expanse, snow swirling around them. Suddenly, a chilling presence descended, and Malkuth felt a cold grip tighten around his heart. From the blizzard emerged a figure, an exact replica of himself, dressed in shadows and emitting an aura of despair. "Welcome, Malkuth," the shadow version sneered, a malicious grin twisting its features. "You think you're worthy of the heart? You are nothing but a coward." Malkuth's breath caught in his throat. "No, I'm not a coward." "Then prove it," the shadow hissed, its voice echoing in the howling wind. "Face the truth you fear to acknowledge." Memories flooded Malkuth's mind, every failure, every moment of self-doubt. The losses of friends, the feeling of inadequacy in the face of adversity. He staggered backward, overwhelmed by the weight of his past. "You will never be strong enough," the shadow taunted, closing in on him. "You'll always be a failure." But as the darkness threatened to consume him, Malkuth's resolve flared anew. "I refuse to be defined by my failures," he shouted, voice breaking through the ice storm. "I am more than my mistakes, I learn from them." With those words, the shadow began to unravel, the icy winds dissipating. Malkuth felt warmth spreading through him, erasing the chill of doubt. As the final remnants of the shadow faded away, the landscape transformed once more, this time into a sunlit meadow filled with flowers. "Trial 2 completed," Lorien announced, her voice ringing with pride. "You have faced your own darkness and emerged into the light." "I feel different," Malkuth said, looking to David and Zarek, who nodded in agreement. The trials were changing them, forging them into something stronger. "Let's finish this," David said, leading the way to the green structure. "Whatever we face next, we can handle it together." They entered the final trial, the air thick with an intoxicating scent of earth and nature. Vines twisted around them, forming a labyrinth that seemed to shift as they walked deeper within. The atmosphere was alive with vibrant colors, but a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air. "Welcome, brave souls," a voice resonated from the shadows. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in vines and adorned with flowers. It was both beautiful and terrifying. "You seek the heart, but do you understand the cost of wielding such power?" "We understand the responsibility," David replied, stepping forward. "We're willing to protect it, not exploit it." The figure regarded them with piercing eyes, and Malkuth felt the weight of their gaze. "Then you must understand the balance of life and death. The heart demands respect, and it can only be wielded by those who know the delicate balance." Malkuth stepped forward, determination etched in his features. "We know that power can corrupt, but we are committed to using it for good." The figure nodded slowly, vines twisting around its form as if considering their words. "Very well, but you must prove your understanding by completing this final trial." Suddenly, the labyrinth shifted, revealing a tumultuous storm brewing ahead. The ground quaked beneath their feet, and Malkuth felt a surge of energy racing through him. They were thrown into a chaotic environment, the storm raging around them, and they had to navigate the treacherous path together. "Stay close," David shouted, the wind howling around them. They fought against the tempest, struggling to keep their footing as debris flew past. "Focus on each other," Zarek yelled, reaching for Malkuth. "We need to support one another." As they moved forward, Malkuth felt the connection between them strengthen. They shared the burden, supporting each other through the storm. In that moment, he realized that true strength didn't come from power alone. It came from unity, from trust, and from the bonds they had forged. With a final push, they reached the eye of the storm, where calmness enveloped them. The figure reappeared, now radiant with light. "You have proven your worth through unity and understanding. You may now seek the heart of Gaia." As the storm faded, they found themselves standing before a pedestal, upon which rested the heart, a radiant crystal pulsing with energy. Malkuth approached it slowly, feeling its power resonate within him. "This is it," he whispered, awe filling his voice. "The heart of Gaia." "Yes," Lorien said, appearing beside them. "But remember, its power is not for your own gain. Protect it, and it will protect you." Malkuth nodded, determination igniting in his heart. They had faced their fears, conquered their doubts, and united against the chaos. Together, they would safeguard the heart and navigate the challenges ahead. With a steady breath, Malkuth placed his hands around the heart of Gaia. Its warmth surged through him, a pulsating energy that echoed with the essence of life itself. It was as if he were cradling a fragment of the universe, a reminder of the balance they had fought to achieve. As he lifted the heart from its pedestal, he felt a wave of power wash over him, accompanied by visions of worlds beyond imagining, planets in harmony, species coexisting, and vibrant ecosystems flourishing. But with that power also came a stark warning. A vision of chaos swept through his mind, alien marauders seeking to exploit the heart, ecosystems thrown into disarray, and devastation spreading like wildfire. "Malkuth, stay focused," David shouted, breaking through the haze of visions. With a jolt, Malkuth snapped back to reality, the heart glowing brightly in his grasp. "We need to secure it. We can't let anyone take this from us." The figure of the vine-clad guardian appeared once more, a serene expression on its face. "You have the heart. It is now bound to you. But be wary, its energy can attract those who would seek to control it for their own purposes." Zarek took a step closer, his brow furrowed with concern. "What do we do now?" "Protect it at all costs," the guardian instructed. "It is both a gift and a responsibility." As they turned to leave the lush chamber, the world around them shifted again, transporting them back to the shimmering field where their journey had begun. The vibrant hues of the landscape seemed to dance with newfound energy, invigorated by the heart's presence. "Let's get back to the ship," David said, determination etched on his face. "We need to plan our next move before anyone realizes what we have." Malkuth nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of urgency surge through him. They hurried back through the maze of shifting pathways until they reached the shimmering portal that led back to their vessel. Once aboard, Malkuth placed the heart carefully on the control console, and the ship's systems hummed to life. Zarek worked swiftly, scanning for any signals of danger. "No immediate threats detected," he reported, relief evident in his tone. David exhaled deeply. "We have to get this back to the trade route. We need allies, and we can't do this alone." "What about the traders who drew straws?" Malkuth asked, recalling their earlier companions. "We need to warn them, too. If they're still around, they could help us." David nodded. "Good thinking. We'll send a message to all our contacts in the area." As they plotted their course, Malkuth felt the weight of the heart pressing on his mind. "We can't let this power corrupt us," he said, glancing at his friends. "We have to remain vigilant. This is bigger than any of us." "Agreed," Zarek said. "We need to harness its energy wisely, not just for ourselves, but for the balance of all life." Suddenly, an alert blared through the ship. "Incoming ship detected," Zarek shouted, his fingers flying across the console. "It's coming in fast." Malkuth's heart raced. "Who is it?" Zarek's eyes widened as he pulled up the data. "It's the Phyllox. They're notorious for raiding trade vessels. They must have caught wind of our activities." "We need to hide the heart," David ordered, urgency driving his voice. "Zarek, find a way to mask our signal. Malkuth, keep an eye on the scanners." Malkuth's pulse quickened as he monitored the incoming ship. The Phyllox were known for their ruthlessness, and if they sensed the heart's presence, there would be no telling how far they would go to obtain it. "Masking signal," Zarek said, fingers moving deftly over the controls. "But we'll need to move fast. They'll be on us in minutes." "Let's get ready for evasive maneuvers," Malkuth said, adrenaline surging through him. "We'll need to outsmart them." The ship shuddered as the Phyllox ship drew closer, its dark hull glinting ominously in the light. Malkuth could see the outline of the vessel on the screen, crimson and silver, adorned with intimidating weapons. "Brace for impact," Zarek shouted as the Phyllox ship unleashed a volley of energy blasts, lighting up the void of space. Malkuth tightened his grip on the console. "Divert power to shields." The ship rocked violently as the shields absorbed the brunt of the attack. "We've got to get out of here," David shouted. "Prepare for a jump." "Jump coordinates locked," Zarek confirmed, sweat glistening on his forehead. "On my mark." Just as the Phyllox ship unleashed another barrage, Malkuth shouted, "Now." With a surge of energy, the ship shot forward, the familiar tunnel of light enveloping them as they entered hyperspace. Malkuth let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Did we lose them?" David asked, glancing at the radar. Zarek monitored the readings closely. "We're in the clear for now, but they'll be hunting for us." Malkuth felt the weight of the heart still resonating in his mind. "We need to regroup with our allies. The Phylox won't stop until they have what we possess." As they emerged from hyperspace, the vastness of the galaxy opened up before them, endless possibilities, countless stars, and the weight of responsibility they now carried. "Let's contact the traders and set a meeting point," David suggested, urgency in his tone. "We need to prepare for what's coming." With each passing moment, the heart pulsed with potential, a reminder that they were not alone in this struggle. They were part of something larger, a fight not just for themselves, but for all the species that called this galaxy home. Malkuth activated the communication system, sending out a broad signal to the traders they had encountered earlier. "This is Malkuth, calling all traders. We have urgent news regarding the heart of Gaia. If you're out there, respond." The ship fell silent as they awaited a reply, each second stretching into eternity. But soon, a familiar voice crackled through the static. "Malkuth? Is that you?" It was Tarlon, one of the traders they had met on their journey. "Yes, we need your help. The Phylox are after us, and we have the heart," Malkuth explained, urgency threading through his words. "Understood. We'll gather the others and meet you at the safe zone. Be careful. The Phylox are relentless." Malkuth felt a surge of hope as they prepared for the rendezvous. "Thank you, Tarlon. We'll see you soon." As they set their course for the meeting point, Malkuth exchanged glances with David and Zarek. "We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. This is for everyone." The stars twinkled around them, a vast expanse filled with possibilities and dangers alike. But no matter what awaited them, Malkuth felt a fierce determination rise within him. They would not back down. They had faced their fears, embraced their strength, and they would protect what was rightfully theirs. "Let's show them what we're made of," David said, a grin breaking through the tension. The ship glided through the cosmic expanse, heading toward the designated rendezvous point. The stars glittered like diamonds against the Inkai backdrop, a stark contrast to the urgency coursing through Malkuth's veins. The heart of Gaia lay nestled securely on the console, radiating a gentle warmth that felt both reassuring and ominous. They had escaped the immediate threat of the Phylox, but Malkuth knew their reprieve was only temporary. "Approaching rendezvous coordinates," Zarek announced, his fingers flying across the control panel as he adjusted their approach. David stood beside Malkuth, arms crossed, his face a mask of determination. "Let's hope our allies are ready for a fight. The Phylox won't take long to recover from our jump." Malkuth nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "We have to be strategic. If we can form a united front, we can take the fight to them instead of waiting for them to come to us." As they emerged from hyperspace, the scene before them was bustling with activity. A small fleet of trader ships, some sleek and angular, others rounded and adorned with eclectic colors, swirled in orbit around a barren planet. It was a haven for smugglers and traders, a place where deals were struck in the shadows, and alliances forged in the heat of battle. "There they are," David said, pointing toward a familiar ship with bright green accents. It was Tarlon's vessel, the Spirit of Trade. Malkuth felt a flicker of hope as they approached. "Let's dock," Malkuth said, his voice steady. "We need to get everyone on the same page quickly." Zarek maneuvered the ship into position, and they secured the docking clamps with a satisfying thud. The airlock hissed open, revealing the bustling interior of Tarlon's ship, already alive with the chatter of traders and their crews. As they stepped inside, Malkuth was met with a wave of warmth and camaraderie. Tarlon greeted them with an enthusiastic embrace. "You made it. We were worried you might not escape the Phylox." "We did, but they won't stop coming after us," Malkuth replied, scanning the room. He could see other traders he recognized, all eager for news. "We need to act quickly. The heart of Gaia is more powerful than we anticipated, and it's attracting attention. Tarlan nodded, leading them to a central table where a holographic display did their surroundings. We've gathered some intel. The Phylox are regrouping, and they're rallying a larger force. We need a plan, and we need it fast. Vorquith glanced at the map, a web of trade routes and potential ambush points glimmering in the air. If we can anticipate their movements, we might be able to set a trap. Exactly, Tarlan said, excitement gleaming in his eyes. We can use the trade lanes to our advantage. We know their ships, their tactics. We can lure them into an ambush. Zarek chimed in, and if we can create a distraction at one of their key routes, it could buy us time to strike at their main ship, take out their command structure. Vorquith felt a rush of adrenaline at the thought. It's risky, but it might just work. We'll need every ship we can muster. How many allies can we count on? Tarlan looked around, nodding to several traders in the room. We have about a dozen ships ready to join us, each willing to fight for the heart, but we'll need to coordinate closely. Then let's get to work, Vorquith said, determination surging through him. We'll split into teams. One group can lay the trap, while the others prepare for a defensive position in case things go sideways. As they strategized, the atmosphere in the room shifted from tension to resolve. Each trader shared their insights, drawing on their experiences to create a robust plan. Vorquith felt the camaraderie growing, a sense of purpose binding them together in the face of adversity. Hours passed as they finalized their strategy, but the time flew by in a blur of activity. Vorquith and his friends moved swiftly between groups, discussing tactics and ensuring everyone understood their roles. We need to be ready to adapt, Vorquith reminded everyone. The Phylox are unpredictable. If we sense they're onto us, we need to adjust our plan on the fly. As they prepared to embark, Vorquith gathered his friends. We're going to make history today. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about every species that relies on the trade routes and the heart's protection. David clapped Vorquith on the shoulder. You're right. Together, we'll show them the strength of our unity. With final preparations underway, they gathered their supplies and boarded their ships. Vorquith felt a thrill of anticipation as they moved into formation, a small armada of vessels ready to take on the Phylox. Time to set the stage, Tarlan said, eyes gleaming with determination. Let's lure them in. As they approached the designated ambush point, Vorquith's heart raced. The vastness of space surrounded them, stars twinkling like distant allies. They activated their cloaking devices, making their ships nearly invisible against the cosmic backdrop. Remember, we stick to the plan, Vorquith said over the comms. The moment they take the bait, we spring the trap. The tension hung thick in the air as they waited, every second stretching into eternity. Vorquith monitored the scanners closely, his instincts sharpened. There they are, Zarek exclaimed suddenly, pointing to a cluster of approaching ships. The Phylox are coming in hot. Vorquith's pulse quickened. All ships, prepare to engage. The moment the Phylox entered the trap zone, Vorquith's heart thundered in his chest. Now. The cloaking devices powered down, and the Allied ships emerged from the shadows, unleashing a barrage of fire on the unsuspecting Phylox vessels. The surprise attack caught them off guard, and chaos erupted as explosions lit up the void of space. Keep firing, Vorquith shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. We can't let them regroup. The Phylox ships retaliated, returning fire with their fearsome weaponry. Vorquith felt the shudders of impacts against their shields, but pressed on, leading the charge alongside Tarlan. Focus on their flagship, David commanded, coordinating their attack. If we can take it out, the rest will fall. As they moved in formation, Vorquith felt the thrill of battle surging through him. They dodged enemy fire, returning shots with precision. The vibrant energy of the heart resonated in his mind, fueling his resolve. Target locked on the flagship, Zarek shouted, his voice filled with urgency. Firing torpedoes. The projectiles launched from their ship, streaking through space toward the Phylox flagship. Malkuth held his breath, heart racing as they connected with a resounding explosion. The flagship shuddered, sparks flying, but it wasn't enough to take it down completely. "Reinforcements are incoming," Tarlin warned. "We need to regroup and launch another strike." "Fall back to the asteroid belt," Malkuth ordered. "We'll use the terrain to our advantage." They maneuvered their ships into the belt, weaving between rocks and debris. The Phylox followed, but the twisting paths of the asteroids gave them the upper hand. "Prepare for a surprise attack," Malkuth said, coordinating with David and Zarek. "We'll catch them in the crossfire." As the Phylox ships barreled into the belt, the Allies emerged from their hiding spots, launching another wave of fire. Explosions lit up the area, sending debris spiraling into space. "Keep the pressure on," David shouted, adrenaline fueling his movements. "We can't let them escape." Malkuth felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him, but he refused to falter. They had come too far to back down now. The battle raged on, lasers crisscrossing the void, and the air was thick with the sounds of explosions and alarms. Malkuth's focus narrowed as he zeroed in on the flagship, determination fueling his every move. "Let's finish this," he yelled, rallying his friends. "For the heart, for our homes." With renewed vigor, they launched a coordinated assault, targeting the flagship's weak points. Malkuth felt the heart's energy surge within him, granting him clarity and strength. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked their position, and Malkuth's ship was thrown off course. "What just happened?" Zarek shouted, struggling to regain control. "Hold on," Malkuth yelled, gripping the controls. "We can't let them shake us." As they stabilized, Malkuth glanced out the viewport to see the flagship faltering, its engines sputtering. "We have to take it down now." With a final push, they unleashed everything they had left, a concentrated blast that struck the flagship squarely. The ship erupted in a brilliant explosion, sending debris flying in every direction. Cheers erupted over the comms as the Phylox ships began to retreat, their ranks breaking under the pressure of the Allied assault. Malkuth felt a wave of triumph wash over him, but his heart remained heavy with the knowledge that the battle was far from over. "We've done it," David shouted, his voice filled with exhilaration. "We turned the tide." "Let's not celebrate just yet," Malkuth replied, keeping his focus sharp. "We need to regroup and assess the situation. There could be more Phylox lurking nearby." As they moved to rendezvous with the remaining Allied ships, Malkuth felt a sense of camaraderie stronger than ever. They had faced the darkness together, and they had emerged victorious. But he knew this was just the beginning. Once they regrouped, Tarlon spoke up, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. "We've won a significant battle today, but we need to ensure the heart remains safe. The Phylox will regroup and come back stronger." Malkuth nodded, taking a deep breath. "We need to establish a defense strategy for the heart and strengthen our alliances. If we can build a coalition of traitors and defenders, we can protect it from anyone who threatens it." David grinned, excitement lighting up his face. "We've proven we can fight together. Imagine what we could accomplish if we organized a trade alliance." Zarek's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "We can share resources, knowledge, and protection. With the heart as our beacon, we can bring balance back to the trade routes." As they discussed their next steps, Malkuth felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had fought for their lives, but they had also fought for the future of countless worlds. The Heart of Gaia was not just a powerful artifact, it was a symbol of unity, resilience, and hope. In the weeks that followed, Malkuth, David, Zarek, and their newfound allies worked tirelessly to establish the Coalition of the Heart. They reached out to traders across the galaxy, forging alliances and sharing the story of their victory against the Phylox. With the Heart's energy at their disposal, they organized defense fleets, fortified trade routes, and ensured that all species could access the resources they needed to thrive. Malkuth felt a profound sense of fulfillment as they built a new era of cooperation and understanding. But the Phylox were relentless. They continued to launch attacks, testing the coalition's resolve. Each confrontation forged their alliances stronger, revealing the true potential of their unity. Vorquith stood on the bridge of their flagship, overlooking a holographic display of the galaxy. The heart pulsed softly beside him, a reminder of their journey. "Together, we can protect what we hold dear," he said, addressing the gathered leaders of the coalition. "Let us stand firm against those who would threaten our way of life. The heart has shown us the strength of unity. Let us embody that strength as we face whatever challenges lie ahead." Cheers erupted in the chamber, voices united in a common purpose. As Vorquith looked around, he saw faces filled with hope and determination. They had faced death and emerged victorious, but they knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Days turned into months as they prepared for the inevitable counterattacks, but through every skirmish, the coalition's resolve only grew stronger. They shared knowledge, technology, and strategies, becoming a formidable force against their enemies. Then, one fateful day, the Phyllox launched a full-scale assault, their fleet larger than ever. Vorquith stood at the helm, his heart pounding. This was the moment they had been preparing for, and he felt a fierce determination rise within him. "Coalition forces, prepare for battle," he commanded, his voice steady. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for the future of every species." As the Allied ships readied themselves for the onslaught, Vorquith's thoughts turned to the heart. Its energy surged within him, igniting a fire of courage. The battle commenced with a ferocity that shook the very fabric of space. Explosions erupted as ships danced through the chaos, and Vorquith led the charge, guiding their forces with precision. But the Phyllox were relentless, their ships swarming like hornets, each one a testament to their determination. As the battle raged on, Vorquith felt the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. "Stay focused," David shouted over the comms, rallying their forces. "We've trained for this. We can't let them take the heart." As they pushed forward, Vorquith felt the heart's energy pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. With each strike, he grew more resolute. They were fighting for something greater, and they would not back down. Hours passed in a blur of fire and chaos, but the tide began to turn as the coalition held its ground. The Phyllox fleet, while powerful, started to falter under the relentless assault of unity. Finally, with a surge of determination, Vorquith and his allies launched a coordinated strike at the Phyllox flagship. They poured every ounce of firepower they had into the vessel, a unified force of traders and defenders willing to risk everything. With a final, explosive blast, the flagship erupted, sending debris scattering across the battlefield. The remaining Phyllox ships hesitated, their ranks breaking as the spirit of the coalition surged. "Push forward," Vorquith shouted, seizing the moment. "Let's finish this." With renewed vigor, they pressed on, chasing down the retreating Phyllox vessels. Vorquith felt a surge of triumph as victory loomed on the horizon. They had proven that unity was their greatest strength, and they would defend it at all costs. As the last of the Phyllox ships fled into the void, cheers erupted across the comms. "We did it," David shouted, his voice filled with elation. "We've defended the heart," Zarek added, a grin spreading across his face. Vorquith took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. But he knew this victory was not just about them, it was about the future they had forged together. As the coalition gathered to celebrate their hard-fought victory, Vorquith stood with his friends, gazing out at the stars that had witnessed their journey. They had come together from different worlds, united by a common cause, and in doing so, had changed the course of their lives. The heart of Gaia pulsed softly beside them, a reminder of the power of unity. They had fought to protect it, but it had also protected them, guiding them through the darkest of times. "Let this be the beginning of a new era," Vorquith declared, raising a glass in celebration. "Together, we will safeguard our future and ensure that the heart's energy is a force for good in the galaxy." As they toasted to their victory, Vorquith felt a profound sense of hope. They had come together against the odds, forged alliances, and defended what was rightfully theirs. The journey had changed them all, and as they looked to the stars, they knew that the future held infinite possibilities.